welcome to this sombering edition of Spotter Jutting. This is going to be our, as you can probably tell by the title, our 9/11 tribute. Will to be released on 9/11/2001, or well, in remembrance of 9/11/2001, and released on 9/11/2021, 20 years after the fact. I just wanted to kind of come and bring to you a little bit of context, not only how it affected me, but some of the events that happened in ham radio on 9/11. So I do have show notes, so this is not completely improv. So remembering that day, I was in 5th grade. Actually, I was in 5th grade I was in math class. One of my favorite classes. No, it was a good class. Quite possible Mrs. Anderson, who could be watching this, she was a wonderful teacher. I'm not just saying that because the entire world's going to see this. No, she was a wonderful person, a wonderful teacher. I still talk to her today. We were, can't even remember what we were studying. All I remember is a friend of mine who was in a different class ends up coming in and telling Mrs. Anderson what's going on, me getting pulled out and going down to his classroom, and live on TV was the World Trade Center #2 getting hit. As I was walking in, World Trade Center #2 was getting hit. I watched that live as it unfolded. So had a big impact on me as a 5th grader. First things through my mind, honestly, I was at the time wanted to be in the military, so first thing through my mind is we're going to war. It wasn't a question through my mind. I have family that's in the military, and the next thing through my mind is they're going to war. And just trying to figure out how to process everything, just knowing I watched an act of war on our homeland. Used to watch Good Morning America. They'd always have the New York City skyline with the World Trade Center, and that all changed like that. So what ended up happening, and excuse me as I go back to my show notes, I actually have them. What ended up happening, we ended up eating lunch. During lunch, the principal made the announcement to every grade. Our school was set up, our middle school was set up 5 through 8. Every grade at lunch got an announcement that what had happened, we were going home. It was the school district's opinion we needed to be with our families, which was honestly the best thing. They had contacted all of our families, and we would come to school when they felt that it was appropriate for us to move forward. I don't think we had school for the rest of the day. I honestly don't, or what's the rest of the week. I don't know what day of the week it was. I just remember going home from school, my dad being there, and him sitting with me for a few hours as we were watching the news. It was on every channel. You couldn't turn the channel. Maybe Nickelodeon had some kids stuff on, and that's probably what some people were watching when they got home. But my dad and I watched 9/11 coverage for the next week. We watched the scenes of people jumping to their fate, knowing that no one was coming to see them. We watched the towers collapse. We dealt with a lot of raw emotion together, which is what the school kind of wanted the families to come together, and we just kind of wanted to know what would happen next. When President Bush made the announcement we were going after him, we were elated. We had an enemy to go after. But as a 5th grader, this was a lot to take in, and still a lot to take in. My family and I were watching a 6-part series on 9/11, And my oldest son, who's now 13, he's learning 9/11 in books, which is, you know, for someone like me who lived it, it's kind of honestly amazing, because I never thought I would be a witness to history the way I was. And we're having him watch it, and I'm sitting there crying, and he's going, Dad, I get it. I understand why you feel this way, because if I had lived through at least watching something like that on TV for a week, 2 weeks, a month after it happened, he goes, I would feel the same way you do, which is awesome that we can teach the younger generation this. But here's the kicker. Along with that tragedy, there was a lot of heroes that day, and some of the greatest heroes were amateur radio emergency service personnel. The hams in New York, they had a ARES net up within 5 minutes of the first tower getting hit. That net did not end, I don't think I have that down, for a month. I mean, it was a long, I mean, they had that ARES net up forever. But within 5 minutes of that ARES net going up, or with getting that tower getting hit, they went across the ham bands. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a set emergency test. This is real world. And they activated the New York City ham ARES within 5 minutes. So while they were struggling with communications, the public service were, which is another point to bring up, the public emergency service hub, so New York Fire, New York Police, their main antenna was on top of the World Trade Center. Not to mention their EMA was on the 21st and 22nd floor of one of the World Trade Center buildings. When World Trade Center got hit, they evacuated EMA to the mayor's bunker, and later to another undisclosed location. And they weren't ready for this. When the towers went down, they lost that antenna completely. And it was up to hams to, you know, help orchestrate the communications aspect of what's going on with this, while the law enforcement and police and fire radios were having trouble. We had hams working with Red Cross. We had hams working with the ferry boats, trying to organize where are we going to put these people, health and welfare checks, missing persons, evacuating the island, because the island was shut down. You couldn't get on or off the island. They had to orchestrate. They were helping the mayor on maritime radio with the ferries and private citizens using boats to evacuate people from the island. So hams played a major and uncredited role. They never get as much credit as it's worth. But you know, we in the amateur radio emergency service, we generally don't. It's generally, they don't have the camera saying, hey, these amateur radio operators did X, Y, and Z. You got to go out there and look, but there's articles out there. There's just not as many well published, which is a shame. People aren't doing videos. They're not doing interviews. But amateur radio played a major role on the day and the days following 9/11. In fact, the youngest ham operator to help out with 9/11 was 10 years old. She got her license, I think, 3 or 4 days after the attack. And she went down and ran health and welfare messages, logistical information, and I can't remember what else I read, in a Red Cross shelter in New York. And 10 years old, did her entire shift running radio at a Red Cross shelter. That's the kind of people that we look for in the ARES. We look for those people that want to jump out and help their community. And, you know, never heard about anything like that before I started doing research to make this video. We had ARES members come from all over the country to help. Reports from California, Canada, Maine, Texas, everywhere. We had ARES members all around the country come to New York, jump on the radio, say, where do you need people? How can I help? Where do you need me? And we had ham operators from Red Cross shelters, Ground Zero, spread throughout the island with emergency personnel because their comms went down, their comms were unreliable, and the amateur radio network was not affected. When all else fails, radio, we live by it. And I've pretty much gone through my show notes. So I want to take a moment to thank all the amateur radio operators, you know who you are, on that day that performed extremely bravely, well, and efficiently. A professional group that helped out during 9/11/2001. While I was a fifth grader, not cowering, when I was a fifth grader crying in my living room, you guys are out there, guys and gals were out there on the front lines with your HTs, with your mobiles, communicating, getting the job done, helping people, potentially saving lives, if not taking care of numerous lives, helping the victims. I, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of all the ARES members, ECs in the country, want to thank you for what you did on that day. There's nothing any of us could do to thank you enough. There's nothing what any of us could do to erase the images from your mind that trouble you at night. Thank you. You don't hear it enough, but you're going to hear it a few more times from me. Thank you. And this is why we get into the amateur radio emergency services. This is why we pick up the HTs. This is why we pick up the mobiles. This is why we drill. This is why we get prepared for things that don't seem possible, because, you know, in the blink of an eye, an airplane can go through a building, a bomb can go off in a city, a power grid can completely shut down, and the rest of the world goes, what do we do? And we stand up and say, I can help. I am here. I am prepared. I am professional. I am ARES. Thank you for your time today, everyone. And keep in mind today the people we lost on 9/11/2001, but most importantly, keep in mind the heroes that all deserve a flag like that from that day, that gave their time, their money, their energy, their sanity to help others. Some gave their lives. We're not going to forget the firefighters and the law enforcement. Thank you, everyone that helped that day. Thank you.